The dim light of the music studio, shadows flickered on the walls, echoing past melodies and memories that lingered in the air. Marco Delgado sat hunched over a mixing board, the buttons cold under his fingers, a reminder of the routine that confined him. Here he found solace, a refuge from the chaos of emotions clawing for release. Outside, the world pulsed with life, but within these four walls, he felt safe. Even if solitude had become a shadow, he couldn't shake. As he adjusted the knobs, an unsettling tension hung in the air, a heaviness that pressed down with an urgency he had not anticipated. Every day followed a predictable cycle, culling tracks, mixing sounds, all while trying to drown out the memories of his past. Today, however, something stirred within him, coaxing him to step outside his self-imposed isolation. While wrestling with the restless energy brewing inside, he finally ventured out into the harsh Texan sunlight, which flickered against his skin like the unwelcoming truth. The world appeared vividly alive, with laughter and chatter drifting from a nearby cafe. Marco sighed and meandered through the streets, his heart aching with the weight of unfulfilled dreams. Eventually, he found himself in front of a quaint, weathered record store, its sign barely hanging on with frayed edges. The door creaked open, inviting him into a familiar realm filled with the earthy scent of vinyl and dust. It felt like stepping into a time capsule filled with the antidote to his loneliness. As Marco entered, the intimate space vibrated with an alluring energy. He wandered through aisles, fingers grazing over the album covers, until he spotted something peculiar, a record titled The Forbidden Melody. Whispers of gossip and caution surrounded this piece, a melody said to bring misfortune to those who dared to play it. Marco felt a strange pull, as if it was speaking directly to him. Holding the record close, he sensed an electric charge, the thrill of potential buried beneath layers of fear. The store clerk glanced at him, sensing this purchase was not merely an impulse, but something deeper, a turning point. Returning to the studio, Marco clutched the vinyl tightly, heart pounding as he set it upon the turntable. The familiar mechanical sounds roared to life, and when he finally dropped the needle, haunting notes filled the silence. Instantly, memories surged forth, images of his mother singing, her laughter blended with the music, vibrant and alive. The melody enveloped him like a warm hug, pulling him back to moments of joy and connection, yet also revealing the profound emptiness since her passing. As the haunting strains resonated in the room, Marco couldn't escape the weight of this discovery, a confrontation with his grief, a nostalgia laced with longing and pain. His heart raced as excitement battled with dread. If he shared this melody, what would it reveal about him? The final note lingered in the air, leaving nothing but an echo of uncertainty and possibility. Marco stepped out into the night, each step heavy with the burden of unspoken emotions. He wondered, was it time to explore the darkness within, or would he retreat once more into the safety of silence? The morning light seeped through the blinds, casting striped shadows across the clutter of Marco's small apartment. He sat at a makeshift table cluttered with empty coffee mugs and scattered notes, the remnants of late nights spent lost in sound and thought. The record he had acquired still lay on the turntable, its presence looming in the room like an unopened letter from a long-lost friend. He could sense its weight, a story waiting to be revealed. Marco found himself torn between two worlds, the vibrant echoes of the past and the suffocating grip of his present. With a heavy sigh, he picked up his guitar, its wooden body worn but familiar, and strummed aimlessly, the strings reverberating with his confusion. Memories of his mother flooded his mind unbidden, her gentle coaxing as she taught him to play, her laughter drifting through sunlit afternoons, filling the air with melodies of love and joy. In those moments, the world had felt expansive, brimming with promise. Suddenly, the sweetness of those memories turned bitter, slicing through him with the reminder of loss that followed her death when he was just a boy. He clenched his jaw, pushing back the tears that threatened to spill. That day, her illness spiraling downward, the sterile hospital walls, the last whispers of a lullaby she sang, had left him with an unquenchable longing and an aversion to full-hearted creativity. The music, once a conduit to connection, now echoed with haunting silence. Marco set the guitar down and closed his eyes. The weight of past failures crept in. The experimental project he had poured his heart into during his early 20s had ended in disaster, leaving him humiliated and ashamed before his peers. After that, he withdrew, letting self-doubt settle into his bones like a persistent winter chill. But as he sifted through these memories, echoes of warmth emerged, flickering like distant stars, guiding him through stormy nights. His mother's unwavering belief in him had resonated. She had often encouraged him to cultivate his talent, to explore the world through sound. Without her, he felt like a ship adrift, lacking a compass. He thought about the musical gatherings at home, the vibrant conversations, cascading laughter, and rhythmic dance of souls united by song. His mother, with her radiant smile leading the way, showcasing her deep love for music. Losing that connection made it easier to lock away his own talents, to be the quiet observer instead of the vibrant creator. After a moment of bittersweet reflection, Marco grabbed a small notebook from the clutter on the table, flipping through pages filled with doodles and half-finished lyrics. He felt the ink bleed like memories, each thought tethered to a moment. His mother's encouragement, the music they crafted together, and the laughter shared over Nightingale songs. He turned to a fresh page, pausing to savor the stillness. Maybe it was time to unearth those buried fragments of himself and begin to heal. As night fell, he found himself lost in the laundry list of haphazard thoughts forming around him. Then, a knock on the door broke the silence, startling him. It was Lila, his vibrant friend and artist, whose laughter sparkled like sunlight through the chaos of his life. "Hey, poet," she chirped, her hair wild and expressive, as though she wore her emotions openly. "Thought I might find you hiding in here. Mind if I join?" He forced a smile, masking the storm beneath. "Sure, come in." As Lila settled cross-legged on the worn rug, she glanced at the guitar. "What's the story today? You've been quiet." Marco hesitated, at a loss. Lila had always been a gentle nudge, never letting him dwell too long in the shadows. He handed her the fresh notebook filled with unfinished lyrics, letting her peruse the disjointed thoughts that spilled from his mind. "You have a voice, Marco, and it's too beautiful to keep tucked away," she urged, flipping the pages, her enthusiasm palpable. "You just need to let it out. It doesn't have to be perfect." Tension flickered in his chest. What if I fail again? What if it doesn't matter? Lila leaned closer, her brown eyes searching his. "Listen, we all have fears, but those fears can't anchor you down forever. Your emotions deserve to breathe, explore them, channel them. Just imagine, what are you really afraid of? You never let that voice out." He shifted awkwardly, anguish welling within him. "What if the music leads me to my mother's void? It's so heavy." For a moment silence enveloped them. Then Lila broke it gently. "Heavy things can hold beauty too. Maybe the music doesn't just lead you back to grief. It could celebrate her, honor her. Find your way to forgive yourself in the process." Touching her head to his shoulder, she offered warmth, a steady reminder of friendship entwined with resilience. Marco felt something shift within, the potential for healing sparking like a flickering bulb. Perhaps it was time to let the echoes of his past shape the music of his present. As they spent the night exchanging ideas, Marco began to feel a long-buried connection to his mother's legacy and the creative process. With Lila's support, Marco knew he could face the haunting melody that hovered on the turntable, and he felt a flicker of hope ignite a pathway forward. The morning sun trickled through the slats of Marco's curtains, illuminating his workspace like a reluctant spectator. The remnants of last night's creativity lingered in the air, a mix of emotions that stirred in tandem with his heartbeats. After Lila's encouragement, a newfound resolve tugged at him, yet doubt crept in, testing his willingness to confront the shadows of his past. He reached for his guitar, its worn surface cool beneath his fingertips. Strumming a soft melody, he felt whispers from the past reaching for him, its sweet notes dancing with memories of his mother teaching him to play. Yet with every chord, a wave of grief washed over him, mingling joy with the agony of longing, a reminder that every moment entwined with happiness held an echo of her absence. Suddenly, Marco's resolve faltered. He let the guitar fall into silence, and he paced the room, anxiety tightening around his chest like a vice. The weight of memories felt oppressive, dragging him into a familiar pit of despair. After a failed project earlier in his career left him scarred, he questioned if he could really step back into the light of creativity. In a moment of impulsiveness, he slipped into the local bar that night, his heartbeat matching the thumping bass that resonated within the dim confines. Laughter and music spilled from the stage, each performance a glimpse into lives unafraid to share their journeys. He leaned against the bar, nursing a drink while watching the small crowd celebrate, their spirits reflecting something he craved, yet felt far from grasping. "Aaron!" he exclaimed as his old friend and bandmate approached. The lingering camaraderie between them sparked with memories of late-night jamming sessions and shared dreams. "Just thinking." "What's on your mind, man?" Aaron asked, leaning against the bar, his eyes sparkling with concern. "Trying to find my way back to music," Marco admitted, glancing at the stage. "But every time I try, it's as if I'm drowning in my past." Aaron studied him, and a knowing smile spread across his face. "You're not alone. We've all faced that fear, standing on the edge, not wanting to fall. But you know what? You have to take the leap, just play. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be real." For a moment, Marco considered the idea. Step onto that stage, share his truth, let the world hear his voice. But as soon as it flickered, doubt would overtake him again. He looked away, feeling like an outsider among people who had no fear. His heart raced, drowning in uncertainty as performances continued to unfold around him. With every note sung, he felt more like a ghost, trapped in the haunting silence of his own self-imposed exile. It wasn't until the last performer finished that he slipped outside into the cool night air, where shadows of loneliness greeted him. "Why can't I break free?" he whispered into the stillness, the question caught in his throat as tears began to form. He gripped the cool brick wall beside him, the rough surface grounding him while the storm within swelled. In this vulnerable moment, a flicker of understanding ignited. Maybe what he needed to do wasn't dwell on fear, but transform it, use the pain as fuel for creation. With newfound insight, Marco resolved to channel his grief through words and melodies, expressing the authenticity he had shied away from for so long. Returning home that night, he found himself captivated by a surge of inspiration. As the hours turned into early dawn, words poured from him, scrawled across pages with urgency. Lyrics emerged, raw and honest, the struggle with loss, the beauty of love, memories entwined with longing, articulating all the emotions he had bottled up for years. The air grew thick with possibility as he picked up his guitar, letting the chords meld with the lyrics in a beautiful dance. Each strum unveiled a personal catharsis, the burden slowly lifting. He was no longer a prisoner to his doubts, but a creator, breathing life into the echoes of his memories. As dawn broke, a sense of calm steadied him. This journey was his, not mapped out perfectly or devoid of pain, but filled with truth, authenticity, and the promise of healing. With renewed determination, Marco knew he was ready to face the haunting melody, to honor his mother, and ultimately to reclaim his voice. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in hues of orange and gold, an ethereal glow that cradled Marco in hope. He stood on the porch, guitar in hand, the gentle Texan breeze tousling his hair. Days had melded into nights since he had unearthed the haunting melody, but it was not the specter of loss that occupied his thoughts anymore. It was possibility, the nascent whispers of rebirth. As he settled onto the rickety porch swing, he felt the wooden slats beneath him, worn by time but sturdy, just like the resolve that had begun to flourish within him. With each note he played, he let the weight of his heart spill onto the strings. Marco began to weave a song from the tapestry of memories, his mother's laughter, the afternoons spent together, and the way she always found beauty in the mundane. Every chord struck became a brushstroke on an emotional canvas. There was the ache of nostalgia fused with joy, and slowly a melody took shape, a bridge leading him home. He closed his eyes and lost himself in the music, allowing it to cradle his spirit, pulling him closer to the truth of his experiences. Yet, amidst this newfound joy, the specter of vulnerability loomed large. He needed to share this creation, to let the world witness the transformation. Thoughts of judgment crept in, taunting his self-worth. "What if they don't hear my story?" he whispered into the evening air, his fingers ceasing their dance. "What if I fail again?" At that moment, Lila appeared at the edge of the yard, lit by the dying light, a beacon of unwavering support. "You okay?" she called out, her voice drawing him back from the precipice of doubt. Marco took a deep breath, feeling the tension in his chest ease. "I think I'm starting to find my rhythm, but..." she coaxed, stepping closer, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. What if I'm too afraid to let go? What if they don't understand? She grinned knowingly and gestured toward the open space between them, inviting him with a wave of her hand. Look, it's not about them, Marco. It's about you, and the journey you've been on. You're creating something beautiful. That's what matters. You don't have to control how it's received, just share it. The invitation challenged him to dig deeper. Marco rose, his gaze shifting toward the town beyond, the twinkling lights appearing like distant dreams waiting to be reached. Okay, you're right. It's time to share my voice. Lila's infectious smile widened. Let's do it together, all right? I'll be your support. With new resolve, they planned to perform at the local open mic night, a small venue, relaxed and supportive. That night, Marco could hardly contain his excitement, but as they approached the venue, his heart took on the weight of a lead balloon. Noise and energy spilled from the dimly lit bar, laughter floating through the air like a promise. Inside, the atmosphere hummed with electricity. Musicians roamed the room, strumming guitars and adjusting their microphones, while laughter intertwined with the sound of clinking glasses. Marco stood near the door, feeling both drawn to and repelled by the scene unfolding. Each performer seemed to radiate confidence, a stark contrast to the uncertainty coiling in his gut. Just breathe, Lila whispered, nudging him lightly. His fingers fidgeted around the neck of his guitar, glistening under the dim lights. What if it doesn't work? What if they don't feel what I feel? Then you keep trying. She squeezed his shoulder reassuringly. You deserve this moment. Moments later, the host called Marco's name, a gentle nudge pushing him toward the stage. Heart racing, he stepped into the warmth of the spotlight, feeling the attention shift. A hush fell over the room, eyes locked onto him, a moment caught between expectation and vulnerability. He took a deep breath, the microphone cool against his skin, and let the silence stretch. It felt like an eternity, each second heavy with anticipation. This song is for my mother, he finally said, his voice steadying as memories surged through him. Then he began to play, letting the melody wash over him, a river of bittersweet nostalgia. Lyrics poured from his lips, raw and unfiltered. Each note reverberated through the room as he sang about love, loss, and the journey of reclaiming his voice. Marco felt the music bathe him, wrapping him in a familiar embrace. As he sang, the audience began to sway gently, lost in the story unfurling before them. The tension he had carried for so long began to melt away, replaced by a connection that transcended fear. For the first time, he was unguarded, unafraid. The room transformed into a sanctuary, the weight of shared experiences binding them together. He no longer felt alone in his grief. He shared this longing with others. When the last note hung in the air, silence enveloped him before laughter and applause erupted, cascading over him like warmth from a summer sun. Marco opened his eyes, breathless and amazed. Lila beamed from the side, her support anchoring him as tears brimmed in his eyes, a mix of disbelief and triumph. In that moment, he understood that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a strength. In sharing his pain, he had found a rebirth, a powerful anthem of hope and resilience. The haunting melody that once terrified him now lifted him, fueling an unquenchable thirst for creativity. As he stepped off the stage, he knew this was only the beginning. The echoes of his mother's love resonated within, guiding him forward on a journey crafted from both his past and his dreams. Marco was ready to embrace this new chapter, armed with the courage to face whatever awaited him. The weeks passed in a flurry of newfound inspiration. With every morning sun that peeked through his window, Marco awakened, eager to write, to create, to explore the echoes of his heart. The open mic night had been a turning point, a spark igniting a smoldering flame inside him. What had once felt like an insurmountable barrier, now transformed into a canvas, waiting to be painted with every emotion he had suppressed. In the following days, he dove deeper into music, allowing himself the freedom to explore sounds and genres that moved him. He found solace in writing about the beauty and pain intertwined in the human experience. Each song began to tell the story of his journey, the intertwining threads of loss and joy, moments of vulnerability weaving into tales of resilience. His performances evolved, gaining a raw authenticity that resonated with audiences beyond the familiar little bar. As word spread about Marco's haunting melodies and heartfelt lyrics, invitations to perform arrived weekly. He accepted them all, relishing the opportunity to connect with others through his music. One chilly evening, he found himself on stage at a larger venue, framed by colorful lights, the crowd's murmurs a comforting hum around him. He stood there, guitar in hand, feeling the rush of adrenaline surge through him. "Tonight I want to share something special," Marco said into the microphone, recalling the moment Lila had encouraged him to be vulnerable. He continued, "This next song reflects not only my pain but also the love that remains. It's a tribute to my mother, whose spirit guides me." With every strum, his soul bared itself. A melodic flood poured from his heart, intertwining with the soft glow of the stage lights, illuminating the vulnerability within him. The audience swayed softly, absorbed in the spell he cast, each listener lost in the narrative unfurling before them. Afterward, as he stepped off the stage, exuding that familiar exhilaration, a woman approached him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "Your song spoke to my heart. I lost my father recently, and it feels like you captured my pain." Her words wrapped around him, affirming the power of shared experiences. Together, they had forged a bond, a connection rooted in loss, but enriched by understanding. The healing power of music enveloped him like a warm embrace. As Marco continued to perform and write, he realized that with every note, he echoed not only his own story but countless others. He celebrated their lives through his art, each person carrying his songs into their hearts. With this awareness, the pressure to create became liberating rather than burdensome. One particular afternoon, inspired by the impact he'd seen his music have, Marco found himself seated with Lila at their favorite cafe. Bright sunlight streamed in through the window, illuminating their corner table. He stirred his coffee absent-mindedly, caught in thought. "Lila," he began, a new idea sparking in his mind. "What if we created something larger? A concert that honors those we've lost. Something that celebrates life, love, and the resilience we all share." Lila's eyes widened with excitement. "That's brilliant, Marco. We could bring together local musicians, create a night filled with heart and memory. It'll be cathartic for everyone involved." As plans began to crystallize, they reached out to fellow musicians, weaving a tapestry of artists eager to join the cause. With each passing day, the concert transformed from a mere thought into a burgeoning reality, the venue filled with the promise of shared stories and deep connection. Finally, the night arrived, and Marco stood backstage, adrenaline coursing through him. The venue pulsed with life, the audience buzzing with anticipation. It was bigger than any show he had done before, the energy palpable, electric. He peeked through the curtain, observing families, friends, and even strangers mingling as they shared in the collective grief and healing. The atmosphere sang with laughter, mingled with the bittersweet notes of remembrance. In those moments, Marco felt a sense of duty, to give voice to those feelings, to honor all the stories contained within that room. As he stepped onto the stage, surrounded by his fellow musicians, a hush fell again. He greeted the audience, heart racing. "Tonight is a celebration of life and the love that never fades. It's for every person we've lost and for every moment we hold dear. Together we're here to share our stories." He nodded to the musicians, and with a deep breath they launched into the first song, a collective harmonization of grief and joy. Each artist contributed their unique sound, weaving a rich tapestry of melodies that intermingled with raw, heartfelt lyrics. Marco felt a triumphant sense of belonging, not just as a singer, but as a steward of stories, encouraging others to share their experiences, to reflect upon the connections that had shaped them. Throughout the night, tears and laughter melded together as the audience shared their songs, their voices rising like a collective heartbeat. Marco witnessed a woman in the front row, her hands clasped over her mouth as she wept. He met her gaze and offered a reassuring smile, silently reminding her she was not alone in her pain. As the concert drew to a close, an eruption of applause filled the room, echoing against the walls like a celebration for lives lived. Marco felt his heart swell with gratitude. This was more than a concert. It was a powerful reminder of the bonds shared in vulnerability, in acceptance, and in love. In that moment of applause, Marco realized that he had not only found his voice but also a community, one rooted in understanding, shared experiences, and empathy. He had discovered that the echoes of loss could create something unexpectedly beautiful, music that celebrated life and honored those who had come before. As the crowd began to disperse and chatter filled the air, Marco turned to Lila, a smile breaking across his face. "We did it!" he exclaimed, adrenaline still thrumming through his veins. "Together," she responded, her eyes sparkling with joy. His heart swelled with gratitude. This journey of rediscovery had brought him closer not only to his craft, but also to the souls of those around him. He took a moment to look at the faces in the crowd, all those who shared this healing experience. In that connection, he found a renewed purpose, a flame reignited, ready to explore even further into the vast landscape of music and emotion. In the weeks that followed the concert, Marco found himself enveloped in a wave of warmth and connection. The success of the event had rippled through the community, igniting a renewed appreciation for art and vulnerability. People shared their stories amidst laughter and tears, reminding one another that life's most beautiful moments often arose from the depths of sorrow. The concert had sparked something deeper, a collective belief that through music, healing was possible. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, Marco set up a small booth at the local farmers' market, where strings of lights twinkled overhead. Fresh produce filled the air with earthy scents, mingling with the sweet aroma of baked goods. In this lively atmosphere, he planned to perform a few songs and connect with those who had come to share their stories. As patrons strolled by, Marco's heart danced with anticipation. He felt more than ready to offer a piece of himself to those in attendance, eager to engage in conversations that mattered. He strummed his guitar softly, letting the gentle notes drift into the thrumming life around him. The first couple of songs drifted through the air, a soothing melody that wrapped around those who paused to listen. People began to gather around his booth, and Marco noticed familiar faces from the concert. Many still carried traces of the healing they'd experienced. A woman stepped forward, her expression one of gratitude. "Your music that night, it saved me," she said, her voice tinged with emotion. "I finally allowed myself to grieve. It's been so long." Marco's heart swelled at her words, echoing the impact he had hoped to achieve through his art. "Thank you for sharing that with me. It means the world to hear. It's not easy to let those emotions surface." The exchange catalyzed a wave of conversation, people sharing heartfelt stories about their loved ones' losses and the small joys they had discovered along the way. Marco listened intently, empathetically. Each exchange felt like a thread, drawing the fabric of community tighter, stronger. As the afternoon unfolded, he felt the lines between himself and his audience fade, creating an intimate bubble of connection. Between performances, Marco found moments to sit back, reflecting in the dappled sunlight filtering through the trees. The laughter of children, the sounds of vendors, and the distant strumming of guitars blended harmoniously, a perfect symphony of life. He thought back to the fears he once harbored, the insecurities that had cloaked him in darkness. How far he had come. The healing journey had evolved from personal pain into a shared movement, and it filled him with a profound sense of purpose. "I can't believe how many lives you've touched," Lila said, settling beside him on a wooden bench shaded by the marketplace's awning. "Just look at this. People are really resonating with your message. You're making a difference." Marco smiled, his eyes glistening with unshed gratitude. "I never imagined I could reach so many. I just wanted to share what I felt. It's amazing, these moments of connection. They remind me that we're all woven together." The day wore on, and as dusk settled in, Marco descended from his booth to join the crowd, lingering over heartfelt exchanges and warm embraces. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting everything in a golden glow, he noticed a small gathering forming around a busker who had just begun to play further down the market lane. Curiosity piqued, Marco approached, intrigued by the enthusiasm emanating from the crowd. The busker sang a lively tune, and people clapped along, swaying in rhythm. Almost unconsciously, Marco joined in, the collective energy replacing the earlier heaviness of his past. As he clapped and sang, he felt as though each heartbeat syncopated with the music binding them together, transcending their individual struggles. Both exhilarating and humbling, the spectacle reminded him of the joy music brought. It was a universal language that spoke to all hearts. He stood there, feeling alive in the moment, surrounded by laughter and connection, reminded of the community he had once feared to embrace. As the night wore on, Marco slipped away from the bustle, retreating to his cozy home filled with memories and dreams. The walls echoed with music he had crafted, and he felt the weight of a blanket of kindness wrapping around him, a feeling of fulfillment and connection that touched far beyond a small town. That night, Marco sat with his guitar under the gentle glow of a lamp, a notebook resting on his lap filled with thoughts and ideas. He began to write, inspired by the stories shared that day. He wrote about movement, the rhythm of life that carried on despite loss, the power of remembering and celebrating loved ones. The words flowed easily, intertwined with tender notes that evoked feelings of nostalgia and gratitude. As he poured his heart into the notes, he realized this was not just about his journey anymore. It had morphed into something much larger, a heartfelt call to embrace life and the memories of those lost, finding healing amidst the chaos. Weeks turned into months, and Marco gathered enough material for his first full album, a mosaic of emotions, each song paying homage to life, love, and the ties that bind them all. The album was to be a vessel capturing the vibrant stories of connection and resilience, echoing with the laughter, tears, and memories of those he had met along the way. Then, in the midst of all the preparations for the album release, Lila approached him with a suggestion. "Let's have a listening party. Invite everyone from the market, anyone who has shared their story with you. Let's celebrate it all and let them know how much they matter." The idea electrified him. This album was not only his, it represented a chorus of voices woven into a single narrative. It was their collective journey. He felt invigorated, eager to share it with the world and remind everyone that they were all connected. As the release date neared, Marco found himself filled with excitement and anticipation, ready to share just how far he had come. He had learned to embrace vulnerability, to recognize that even amidst pain, beauty could be found in the shared human experience. Finally, the day of the album listening party arrived, and Marco stood backstage, enveloped in a comfortable buzz of community. It was not merely a celebration of his music, but of the collective heart of their experiences, the laughter, the tears, and especially the love shared for those they had lost. He took a deep breath, knowing that the true essence of the evening would resonate in the room, bound by connections forged through the stories they had shared, threaded together in the beautiful tapestry of music. The venue buzzed with warmth as Marco stood backstage, his heart thumping in rhythm with the collective anticipation of the crowd. Friends, family, and familiar faces filled the space, each one a reminder of the journey he had traveled. As he took a deep breath, the weight of the moment anchored him, grounding him in purpose. Lila appeared beside him, her energy infectious. "Are you ready?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. "More than ever," Marco replied, feeling a surge of gratitude. "This night is bigger than me, it's for all of us." With a nod, Lila led him onto the stage, and the audience erupted into applause. Marco felt the warmth of their support envelop him, a tidal wave of connection pulling him into the moment. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice steady. "This isn't just about my music. It's about honoring the stories we share and celebrating the love that remains with us." He began strumming the first chords, a melody weaving through the air, wrapping the audience in comfort. Each song represented not just his memories, but the collective struggles and joys they had all experienced together. As he performed, tears glistened in many eyes while smiles flickered amidst the crowd, reflecting the gamut of emotions that flowed through the venue. As the music echoed, Marco invited audience members to join him on stage, encouraging them to share their own stories. One woman took a hesitant step forward, her voice trembling as she recounted the loss of her father and the healing power of remembrance. An older gentleman spoke lovingly about his late wife, laughter mingling with tears as he recounted shared moments of joy. Each shared story served to deepen their connection, binding them in a shared landscape of heartache and healing. Between songs, Marco embraced the emotional tide that flowed through the room. Stories bridged the gap between individual grief and community. He realized they were part of a larger narrative, each voice adding richness to the tapestry they were weaving together. As the night deepened, these moments became increasingly precious, a reminder that vulnerability nurtured connection. When it was time for the final song, Marco paused, collecting his thoughts. He chose a ballad that encapsulated their journey, the collective pain, the sparks of joy, and the unyielding strength that emerged from shared experiences. As he played, he poured everything into the melody, and the audience swayed, lost in the reverberations of their shared humanity. As the last note lingered in the air, a profound silence enveloped the room before an eruption of applause filled the space. Marco beamed, seeing familiar faces glowing with appreciation. "Thank you for sharing this moment with me," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Together we've created something truly special." The celebration that followed was filled with laughter, stories, and a sense of collective achievement. Marco felt the determination to continue nurturing this community he had built, knowing that their connections would extend beyond this night. Later, as the crowd began to ebb, Marco turned to Lila, emotion swelling in his chest. "I couldn't have done this without you. You found your voice, Marco. You brought us all together," she said, pride evident in her gaze. He looked around, the faces of friends and strangers illuminated by joy and connection, and understood the impact of the evening. It was not just about personal triumph. It was a celebration of love, shared struggles, and resilience. It was about recognizing that each story was part of an ongoing legacy, a reminder of the bonds that unite them all. Under the starry sky, Marco felt a profound sense of purpose. He was ready to embrace not just his journey, but the paths that others would walk alongside him. The music he had shared that night would always resonate in their hearts, echoing connections with each note and lyric, forging a future filled with understanding, empathy, and love. As he watched the last of the attendees filter out, he realized this was just the beginning. He envisioned continuing the conversations, creating more music, and constantly celebrating the fabric of their shared experiences. They were not just individuals, but a community, a living testament to the beauty found in vulnerability and the power of shared storytelling.